what not to do in Thailand, according to people who've actually been there and shared their experiences on Reddit.
Oh, it's a wild ride.
So if you're ready to trade those rose-colored glasses for some real-world travel wisdom, buckle up. We're going beyond the usual tourist traps and getting into the nitty-gritty, like cultural etiquette, those unexpected laws, and all those little things that can either make or break your trip. And to help us unpack all of this, we have our expert who has bravely ventured into the depths of Reddit so you don't have to.
So someone had to do it, and let me tell you those Reddit threads.
Oh, I bet. What was the most surprising thing you found?
Honestly, it was the sheer number of comments about respecting the Thai monarchy. I mean, people were really emphasizing this.
Yeah, that's something you don't always see in the brochures.
Not really. And it's not just about outward disrespect. It's about understanding how deeply revered the monarchy is and the legal framework around that reverence.
Right, the lese majeste laws. That's something every traveler should really be aware of, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Those laws are no joke. And what's interesting is how even seemingly minor offenses can have some pretty serious consequences.
Like what? Give us an example.
Well, one user got legal threats just because of a negative online review about a clinic.
Seriously?
Yeah?
Just for a review?
Yeah, apparently the review mentioned something that could be interpreted as critical, even though the issue was with the clinic's practices, not the monarchy itself.
Wow, that's really something else.
Yeah, it really highlights how crucial it is to be sensitive to local customs and laws, even if they're different from what we're used to. What might be acceptable back home could land you in hot water somewhere else, especially when it comes to something as important as the monarchy in Thailand.
That's a cautionary tale for sure. Okay, so we've talked about being respectful of the monarchy, but what about something a little more lighthearted like transportation?
Oh, believe me, transportation in Thailand is anything but lighthearted.
Oh, I always thought it seemed kind of fun, all those tuk-tuks and motorbikes zipping around.
It can be fun, sure, but there's definitely a learning curve and some strong opinions about how to do it safely. There were tons of warnings on Reddit about renting motorbikes, especially without an international driver's license.
Yeah, that makes sense, I guess.
And it's not just about accidents, although those do happen. It's also about insurance, if something were to go wrong. One Redditor even saw a taxi driver driving on the sidewalk.
Wait on the sidewalk, you're kidding.
Nope. Apparently that's a thing there sometimes. It's a completely different world of traffic.
Wild. So it sounds like caution is key. Maybe stick to reputable taxi services, walk when you can, and always double-check those driver's licenses.
Exactly. Better safe than sorry. Now, what about cultural etiquette? That always makes me a little nervous when I travel. You never want to accidentally offend anyone.
Same here. What kind of insights did you pick up from Reddit?
Well, for starters, let's talk about interacting with monks. That's a big part of Thai culture.
Yeah, I've heard you're supposed to be really respectful.
Definitely. And one thing that came up a lot is that women should avoid any physical contact with monks.
Makes sense. And then there's the whole left-hand thing, right?
Oh, yeah, the left-hand rule. That sparked some debate, actually.
Really? I always thought that was pretty straightforward. The left hand is considered unclean, right? So you don't use it for things like eating or handing someone something.
That's the gist of it, but some people were saying it's not as strict as it used to be.
Interesting. So what's the verdict? Should we be worried about offending someone with our left hand?
I'd say it's better to err on the side of caution. Someone who said they were Thai even suggested using both hands to be extra polite.
Two hands it is. When in doubt, be extra cautious, right?
Exactly. And, it's fascinating how much these cultural norms can vary even within a single country. It just shows you how important it is to be adaptable and always open to learning.
Absolutely. Now, what other cultural quirks should our listeners be aware of?
Let's talk about feet.
Feet?
Yeah, feet. It's considered very disrespectful to point your feet at someone or to put them on furniture.
Oh, yeah.
Big time. Your feet are definitely something to be mindful of in Thailand. But let's move on to something that can really trip you up. I mean, literally, scams.
Oh, boy. I knew this was coming. Those Redditors love to share their scam stories.
It's like a badge of honor. And let me tell you, this thread was a gold mine. Especially when it came to those tuk-tuk drivers.
Yeah, I love a good tuk-tuk ride. But I can also see how they could be prime territory for a little tourist trickery.
Oh, absolutely. They're often super friendly and charming, which makes it even easier to fall into their trap.
Okay, so what kind of scams are we talking about here?
Well, the classic one is the Grand Palace is closed scam.
Really? How does that work?
So you're all excited to see the Grand Palace, right? But your friendly tuk-tuk driver suddenly tells you, oh, sorry, it's closed today. Some special religious ceremony or something.
Sneaky. And I'm guessing they just happen to have another temple or two up their sleeve that they can take you to out of the goodness of their heart.
Exactly. Don't worry, I know the perfect place. And of course, those alternative destinations probably have some kind of commission scheme going on with the drivers.
Wow, so it's always buyer beware. Good to know.
Always. Don't just take anyone's word for it. Double check the information, especially when it comes to opening hours and stuff like that. Stick to official sources as much as possible.
Solid advice.
Okay.
Okay, what other travel traps should we watch out for?
Well, here's a good one. The jet ski rental scam.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
This sounds scary. Tell me more.
Okay, so you're feeling adventurous, you rent a jet ski and have a blast out on the water, but when you bring it back, bam! The rental company accuses you of damaging it.
No way. Like, what kind of damage?
We're talking huge scratches, dents the works, and then comes the kicker. They demand a ridiculous amount of money for the repairs, sometimes thousands of dollars.
Oh my gosh, are they serious?
Dead serious. And they often pressure you to pay up right then and there, or else.
Or else what?
Well, let's just say things could get a little uncomfortable.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That sounds like a nightmare. I am definitely going to be extra cautious with rentals now, especially anything that involves potential damage.
Good plan. It's always better to be safe than sorry. Now, speaking of being cautious, let's talk about food and water safety.
Yes, that's always a top concern for me when I travel. I mean, you don't want to spend your whole trip glued to the toilet.
Definitely not. And there were a lot of Redditors chiming in about the importance of being careful what you eat and drink in Thailand.
So what's the verdict? Is it safe to drink the tap water there, or should we stick to bottled?
You know, most people recommended sticking to bottled water just to be on the safe side.
Probably a good idea. You can never be too careful.
Exactly. Now for the really important question. What about ice?
Oh gosh, yes. I am obsessed with iced coffee, and I can't imagine having to go without it on my trip. Please tell me there's hope.
Okay, so here's the deal. A lot of people warned against crushed ice.
Why is that?
Apparently, it's often made using tap water.
Oh, no. So does that mean no iced coffee for me?
Not necessarily. Those cylindrical ice cubes with the hole in the middle, you know the ones I'm talking about.
I think so.
Those are usually fine. They're usually made with filtered or treated water in big factories, so they're a much safer bet.
Oh, thank goodness. I can already taste that delicious iced coffee.
Right.
But wow, I never realized there were different grades of ice cubes.
Right. You learn something new every day. But hey, that's what this deep dive is all about, getting those insider tips and tricks to make your trip as smooth as possible.
Absolutely. So we've covered the big ones, the monarchy transportation, cultural etiquette scams, and food and water safety. Anything else we need to know before we head off on our Thai adventure?
Well, aside from those major points, there were a few smaller but equally important pieces of advice that I picked up from the Reddit trenches.
Smaller but equally important.
All right.
Lay it on me. What other Reddit wisdom did you unearth?
Well, one thing that popped up was about public displays of affection.
Oh, right, PDA. Is that a big no-no in Thailand?
It's definitely something to be mindful of. The general consensus was to keep it to a minimum. Holding hands is fine, but anything beyond that might be pushing it.
Good to know. I'd rather err on the side of caution. What else?
Dressing modestly when you're visiting temples, that's a big one.
Makes sense. You want to be respectful of those sacred spaces.
Exactly. You wouldn't wear a bathing suit to a temple, right?
Definitely not. Although now I kind of want to see someone try.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Anyway, another important one, and this might seem obvious, but don't get involved in any local disputes.
Yeah, that's a good way to stick out like a sore thumb. Hey everyone, look at the clueless tourists trying to insert themselves into this argument they know nothing about.
Exactly. And on that note, there was one final piece of advice that really stood out to me.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Hit me with it.
It's about being mindful of your volume, especially on public transportation.
Ah, yes. The fine art of the inside voice.
Uh,
I'll admit I've been guilty of forgetting that one, especially after a long flight or when I'm excited about something.
It's easy to forget that different cultures have different norms when it comes to things like volume and personal space.
For sure. So basically just be aware of your surroundings and try to blend in as much as possible.
Got it. Exactly. It all goes back to being respectful. Remember, you're a visitor in their country.
Well said. You know, it's been really eye-opening diving into all these do's and don'ts of Thailand. But I have to say, some of the advice we've talked about seems a bit extreme.
I know what you mean. There were definitely some people on that Reddit thread who were advocating for extreme caution, almost to the point of being afraid to even leave your hotel room.
Exactly. While others were all, just relax. Thai people are so friendly and welcoming.
It's all about finding that balance, right? being aware of potential risks, but also being open to new experiences.
Perfectly put. Which I think brings us to the ultimate question we want our listeners to ponder. How do we as travelers walk that fine line between respecting local customs and staying safe, especially when those two things might seem at odds?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's not limited to Thailand either. It's something we should all be thinking about no matter where we travel.
Absolutely. It's a constant learning process,
Yeah.
but that's part of what makes travel so rewarding.
Right. Couldn't agree more.
Well, on that note, I think we've officially conquered this Reddit rabbit hole.
We covered a lot of ground, that's for sure.
We did. A huge thank you to our amazing expert for sharing all this incredible insight. And to our listeners, as always, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the heart of Thailand. Remember, adventure awaits, but a little preparation goes a long way. Until next time, happy travels, everyone.